Chicago Crime Files. By the 1900s, the Black Hand had fractions in several major cities, including Philadelphia, New Orleans, Detroit, and of course, Chicago. As early as 1904, the Black Hand activities were reported in Chicago, but most of the Black Hand's crimes took place between 1910 and 1915. The Black Hand was an extortion racket. They only extorted money from their victims, but the organization profited from crime. The Black Hand would send a threatening letter equipped with Victorian emojis such as a smoking gun, a hangman's noose, skulls, knives dripping blood, or piercing a human heart. And the Black Hand made good on those threats. The Shotgun Man was an assassin and spree killer, allegedly having killed 15 Italian immigrants between January 1st, 1910 and March 26, 1911, at the Death Corner in Chicago's Little Sicily neighborhood. In March of 1911, an alleged 4 people were murdered by the Shotgun Man within 72 hours. Witnessed by dozens of bystanders, no identification of the man was ever made. Big Jim Colosimo immigrated from Italy to Chicago at the age of 17. Known as a petty criminal, Colosimo was made precinct captain and bagman for Michael Hinky D. Kenna and John Coughlin, both of which had to be on the take. These political connections helped Colosimo to rise to power as a mob boss. In 1902, Colosimo married a known madam and opened a second brothel. In a few short years, Colosimo owned hundreds of brothels and had expanded his criminal enterprise to include gambling and racketeering. By the 1910s, the Black Hand was a serious threat to Colosimo's criminal enterprise. Colosimo brought Johnny Torrio in from New York to deal with the Black Hand. Torrio eliminated the extortionists and stayed in Chicago to run Colosimo's operation. In 1919, Underworld associate Frankie Yale requested that Torrio allow a young man and former employee of Torrio's, Al Capone, to work for Torrio in Chicago after Capone was almost beaten to death by the White Hand Gang in Brooklyn. In 1920, Torrio wanted to move into bootlegging. Colosimo was against the idea, fearing that it would draw more attention to his organization from police and rival gangs. So Torrio got approval from Colosimo's allies, orchestrated Colosimo's murder, and took over his criminal enterprise. It is speculated that either Frankie Yale or Al Capone was Colosimo's hitman. Torrio and Capone were controlling all of the gambling, prostitution, and bootlegging on the south side of Chicago and the Loop, Chicago's downtown area. But the fellas were looking to expand north. That is the North Side and the Gold Coast area, which was the territory of Dion O'Banion. The Gennas, who were outfit allies, wanted to just kill O'Banion, but Torrio, who was nicknamed the Fox for his cunningness, and who has also been referred to as the best of all the hoodlums by talent, not morals, resisted the move, knowing that it would spark an all-out gang war between the South and north sides. O'Banion and Torrio both held large stakes in the Sebin Brewery. O'Banion learned that the brewery would soon be raided. Before it could be raided, O'Banion told Torrio that he was scared of the Genna brothers, and he sold his shares to Torrio for $500,000. Torrio soon realized that he had been double-crossed by O'Banion, who would not return the $500,000. Torrio also lost the brewery, was indicted, and humiliated. Pause. You might be asking yourself, how is it possible for these gangsters to run this city with little or no interference from the police? Because almost every major politician or police officer in Chicago was on the take. William Hale Thompson, voted the worst mayor in America's history by a group of historians, Thompson was Chicago's 41st and 43rd mayor. He was also directly on Al Capone's payroll. Thompson was a progressive leader in that he freely gave jobs to blacks. Whites were angry that blacks supported him, and this was one of the many reasons for the race riots of 1919 in Chicago. Thompson did not seek re-election due to implications that his campaign manager accepted bribes and shook down vendors. By 1927, Thompson had ran again and promised not only to keep Chicago wet, but to reopen all of the illegally operating speakeasies that his predecessor had closed down and opened up thousands more. Prohibition was still in play, so he made an illegal campaign promise in his campaign speech. Al Capone had a picture of Thompson in his headquarters and funneled $100,000 to Thompson's campaign. The murder of Dion Banion by Frankie Yale, John Scalise, and Albert Anselmi on November 10, 1924, started a 5-year gang war that culminated in the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Dion O'Banion was an Irish mobster who is known to be the first person to ever hijack a liquor truck. Growing up, O'Banion was part of the Little Hell Gang, a branch of the Market Streeters that were a gang of shoplifters and muggers. This is where he met fellow gang member, the only man to ever incite fear in Al Capone, Earl Jaime Weiss, Victor the Schemer Drucci, and George Bugs Moran. O'Banion was running the North Side and the Gold Coast. He was also part of the New Chicago Crime Syndicate, a partnership with many gang leaders in Chicago, which meant O'Banion would have to respect the other members' territories. Not only was O'Banion pushing his bootlegging into Cicero, which was Torrio and Capone territory, on the week of November 3rd, he was counting the week's profits with Capone, Frank Nitti, and Frank Rio. It was mentioned that Angelo Genna dropped a large amount of cash and also a large marker. It was suggested by Capone that they dropped the marker out of professional courtesy. O'Banion called Genna and demanded payment within a week. This was received as a personal insult by Angelo. A week to the day, O'Banion would be dead. On the morning of November 10th, 1924, Frankie Yale, John Scalise, and Albert Anselmi went to O'Banion's flower shop. O'Banion greeted the men, thinking that they were there to pick up a wreath. O'Banion shook the hand of Frankie Yale, who gripped his hand in place, while Scalise and Anselmi shot O'Banion twice in the chest, twice in the cheek, and twice in the throat. This is known as a Chicago handshake, which was invented by Al Capone. O'Banion died instantly. It is said that upon hearing of O'Banion's death, Jaime Weiss broke down sobbing. In 1926, Weiss and his men drove to Capone headquarters in Cicero and shot more than 1,000 rounds into the building. 3 weeks later, Capone's men gunned down Weiss and 3 of his men in front of Holy Name Cathedral. With O'Banion and Weiss dead, Bugs Moran was the only person left to take over the Northside operation. Moran ran the Northside operation out of a garage. On February 14, 1929, Moran was lured to the garage under the guise of getting a car ready to drive to Canada, where liquor was still legal. That's how they were getting the liquor and bringing it back to Chicago. At about 10:30 a.m., 4 men raided the garage. 2 were dressed like police officers and armed with machine guns, the other 2 in suits. Believing this to be a police raid, the 7 men inside did not resist the men and lined up against the wall. That's when the 4 men unloaded a 50-round drum and a 20-round box magazine into the men. Moran was late to the meeting, which spared his life, but 5 of Moran's men and 2 mechanics were killed. Next time on Chicago Crime Files, we will examine the role violence played in modern-day gang culture in Chicago.